As we told you earlier in the show, it's the tale of two farm economies right now. The livestock sector turned out better than expected last year, while the row crop sector is under great distress. One industry looking at a recovery this year is the pork sector, as we explore in this week's Farm Journal report. Pork producers across the U.S. are still recovering from a painful 2023.
There's a lot of financial healing needing to be done before we really even talk about any meaningful expansion in the industry.
2023 is a year that will be etched in producers' minds, marking the worst year for profitability on record, proving to be even more severe than 1998.
But what hasn't changed is 2023 was the worst year ever for profitability for pork producers. Now, what has changed is 2024 was better than forecasted. So you could call it roughly break even. And 2025 is looking to be a modest level of profitability in that $9 to $10 per head range as currently markets sit today.
And that's helping paint a better picture for the pork industry in 2025.
I think this could be the quickest turnaround in pork producer profitability ever. But that also speaks more to what 2023 was and how bad it was than it does about current and future profits.
Dr. Lee Schulz says his forecasts show producers won't get back to break even until August of this year, a testament to just how steep losses were in 2023.
The pigs are profitable right now, but to make up for the losses is going to take a little while yet to recover from some of that.
But as Minnesota pork producer Terry Walters told Michelle Rook, profitability is at least on the horizon this year.
I think without question, lower grain inputs are a significant help to the livestock producer right now. You see the board is trading higher, cutout's been good, pork demand in general has been good, and trade exports have been good. So a lot of positive things on the meat side of the industry.
U.S. pork exports have been impressive. The final 2024 export data from USDA released last week shows U.S. pork saw record exports last year.
So not only did we break export volume records, but we broke export value records. So if you think about one way that we know we had an increase in demand was our customers worldwide, they ate more pork and they paid higher prices for it.
U.S. Meat Export Federation CEO says 2024 exports reached a record 3.03 metric tons, beating out the previous record set in 2020 of 2.98. And pork value, well, that was up 6% over the previous record reached in 2023.
Broad-based growth is the name of the game there. It's really almost the entire world is growing, led by Mexico. Central America, South America, places like Colombia are booming.
Holstrom says even places like Korea are seeing booming pork exports.
It's a pretty good story on pork, and going into 2025, a much different supply situation on pork versus beef, with a lot of potential to grow and set a new record, and we're forecasting another new record in 2025 for pork.
Schulz is also optimistic on what happens with pork exports in 2025.
Why also I remain very bullish on pork exports U.S. is 2024 was the first time that the U.S. had surpassed the European Union since 2014 on pork exports.
But the one concern and caveat is what happens with tariffs.
Tariffs, they're not going to stop trade, right? They have the potential to slow trade. When you think about it from a short run impact, there's reasons why we've developed the relationships and we have the product flow that we have. Pork will become more expensive for those customers, right? And that's going to impact trade. But the impact is longer term, I think, and the worry there of how long those tariffs last.
The tariffs are injecting uncertainty into outlooks, but that's not the only piece that has the pork industry on edge.
I think the other one that continues to add to the uncertainty is just about the impact of disease out there and how large, widespread an impact that's having on production.
He says prices have not incentivized any expansion in the pork sector, but the disease piece of the puzzle is one that could sway production estimates in future reports.
As you look at USDA's estimates and hog and pigs reports and the need to make some revisions, that's come because there's a lot of uncertainty just about the impact of disease and what that's having on our hog numbers and pipeline supplies.
Litter rates and carcass weights actually created an increase in pork production over the past year, but the breeding herd remained flat.
Another thing is our sow numbers were down in the U.S. a little bit of retraction in the sow herd. But if you look at overall production and wean pigs produced, we produced more pigs with fewer sows. And, there were several health challenges through some months in there, and Dr. Kerr can touch on that a little bit later. But the genetics that we're working with has the potential to produce more pigs year over year, even with less sows out there. So excited about 2025. Pig markets are looking really good. It'd be fun to see what we can do this year.
Excitement for 2025 as producers have worked to not outpace current demand.
I look at 2025 again as stabilizing and maybe the start of a pivot to, starting to see some moderate expansion in the industry going forward that we may start to realize in 2026 and 2027.
As optimism continues to dominate conversations to start this year, it's a reminder that pork producers find a way to persevere.
One thing about our producers, they're so resilient. They're going to come back. They're going to find a way to survive in the meantime, and now that's going to give them some opportunities to backfill some of those holes that were created due to the poor economy.
Farm Journal's pork editor Jennifer Scheich took a much more in-depth look at the state of the pork industry in her pork podcast. You can check that out on our Farm Journal YouTube page. Well, one piece of uncertainty for the pork industry, as we just talked about, and really all of ag, is the possibility of a trade war. Ag Around the World is next.